All right, everyone, welcome to episode 9
Welcome.
now of Slayhouse Review. This episode, we will be covering the story Thataway by Thomas
Thataway.
McGuane. Now, just off the bat, I have to say, I feel a little bit like, I'm like tired, still a little bit hungover. And the thing that always happens is I feel like with stories that I end up like stories that I actually like, I feel like I don't have enough to say about them to fill a whole
Right.
podcast episode.
Right.
And I feel sort of self-conscious about the fact that like I don't necessarily think I have anything entertaining to say about this.
I kind of feel the same way, but I think we'll,
I mean, we can certainly discuss. I will say, I think discussing the plot of this story is going to be a little bit difficult because similar to the one about the guy with the fucking tree and getting electrocuted, whatever that story was.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I mean, I guess this does have a plot, but there's like just a lot of characters in here. But compared to that other story, I feel like this actually worked incredibly well.
I agree, because it was a family drama.
Yeah, and I guess to relay the plot, we can just do it very, very quickly.
Let's just dive in.
And I mean, because I think this story really is not its plot. This story is its cast of characters.
Yes. Totally. Absolutely.
So yeah, basically we start the story with two sisters who are old and they live in a small prairie town. But they also have a brother, and they haven't seen their brother in a very long time because their brother became like kind of like a B movie star, cowboy movie in like the 50s, and then used his career as a cowboy western movie star to then launch a chain of like discount furniture stores, which
furniture outlets.
So and he never returned to his small town.
Lives in Palm Springs.
Yes. And I thought he was going to be gay, but he's not gay.
Not gay. He has one daughter. Her name is Bonnie, and she's sort of like a spoiled LA, like
bitch.
And Nepo baby,
making
documentaries.
And she's trying to make a documentary about her dad. And so at the beginning of the story, sister Mildred, so it's two sisters, Mildred and Constance,
and they live together in the small town still.
Then Mildred dies like very early into the story, and then the rest of the story is about Cooper, the brother, returning then to his hometown at the behest of, no, that wouldn't be the right word, would it? Behest? Sort of like,
I mean, there's sort of like it's not that Constance like invites him to come per se, but that's the remaining sister. But sort of it is his familial duty to,
and
go
his
to his
daughter
sister's funeral.
is also like prodding him to.
The daughter wants him to go to the funeral, not only because she, well, in theory, thinks it's like a good thing to do, but she also wants to get a documentary, like some footage of her dad in his hometown.
Yeah, she like the story like implies kind of, not really implies, but like makes it clear that his daughter Bonnie does not really think very highly of her father, and like wants to kind of make this documentary to embarrass him the way that she has made documentaries to embarrass other powerful men in the past.
Right. And she lives at his house, Cooper's house, like sort of just rent free. I mean, Cooper has this sort of like live-in house cleaner / maybe caretaker,
maybe romantic partner, but not really, just sort of like, platonic caretaker. It's said that she's supposed to be a housekeeper, but then in the story, it's like she doesn't really do anything. She's just
she's like watches
Cooper
sitcoms.
Likes his her companionship.
Right. So, and I mean, I think like kind of getting into it a little bit for a good chunk of the story, and as well as kind of the opening and closing, we are very close to Constance, who, as we are sort of introduced, she's the younger of the two sisters. Like Mildred was the oldest and really took on like a motherly role. Constance is sort of, she married her high school boyfriend, and then she's had like three husbands die.
Both of them have had three. Are they both widows 3 times?
They're widows. They're both like several times over. Each was a widow. Mildred thrice over.
Yeah, so Mildred had more. Yeah.
But Constance is also a widow, I guess, from the high school boyfriend dying.
And then Mildred, this sister that died, She also has a son who's kind of like a loser druggie named Wayne, who's like really gross. And now that Mildred died, he like inherits half of the house that they live in together, the two sisters.
Their childhood home. Right.
And then we learned that Wayne was adopted by Mildred at some point, but that's not really a big part of the story. But like, she's got this like nasty son that Constance doesn't really like.
Like, he like doesn't help them. Like, whenever their car breaks down, he's like, "Oh God, now I gotta like help you." It's like
a presence in their life.
Not like an appreciative
he's like nasty
son. He's just sort of nasty. But one thing I thought was also kind of the real, stride of this piece, I think, was like when Mildred just sort of drops dead. We're told she has like diabetes, like, but the way it's sort of described as these two elderly women who live together. In a way, they're sort of like longing for death. They're both like, whenever, I thought this was like one of the funniest fucking lines. And like, so true. It's like, whenever anything was going wrong with the car or like they had annoying stuff to do, they just kind of wished they would die.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, there's something so like incredible about that, because I say that all the time. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna kill myself.
I mean, very true of like, especially elderly women. Like my grandma, when she was nearing her death, all she would talk about was like, can I just die already? Like, why am I still alive? Like, can I just die already? She would always say that. Kind of like angry old women love openly lusting for death. And I can't wait to reach that part of my life as well. Just be like, why aren't I dead?
Which I think is like getting to some of the core of the story. Like by the end, so what happens is Wayne ends up moving into Constance's home. He misses the funeral of his mom or like whatever the fuck. So Wayne is there and it's like not going well for several months. Like he takes Constance's bedroom and like makes her move to a different room. And like Constance is like, okay, whatever, this isn't working. So finally she's like, should we, just sell the house? And Wayne's like, actually, yeah. So Wayne just like absconds to California and just like fucks off. And Constance is like, well, what should I do now? So what she does is she just shows up at her brother Cooper's house in Palm Springs, his fucking mansion. He doesn't want to deal with her. He wants nothing to do with his past. So what happens? But his past comes to him. She's like, I'm here. And he's like, where are you going? And she's like,
I've arrived. And that's like the last line of the story.
And she gets to make these people deal with her now. She has lived a long life. She has put up with this for years and years and years. And now she's like, fuck it. Why don't I just make these men deal with me? I think that's so kind.
And I think it really, I don't know. I think it captures like the emotional reality of kind of like having your whole life be in like a small town, having a small existence. We also learned from this story that they had like a hard time growing up, that their parents were alcoholics and they were homeless at some point. And they didn't really have an easy childhood.
And Mildred was like the
kind of took on the role
mom
of caretaker
figure and stuff.
And also by the time we get to the end, Cooper's daughter Bonnie like decides after like the hometown visit. So eventually Cooper does, he goes to the hometown.
Oh, she traps him on the parade.
Yeah, there's like a parade that like nobody in the town like cares
she
about.
Like just said it was like the daughter just like set it up for the movie and was like, then you find out that like it's like some guy in a Cadillac. She's just like paying him by the hour, and like there is no parade, and he's just like, oh, okay, like
nobody cares.
Nobody gives
and
a
then
fuck.
By the time they get back, Bonnie's like, I don't really want to make this documentary anymore.
It's like kind of boring.
Kind of just, drops
it's not really that interesting.
Which I thought
like,
also was brilliant.
Another
asset that I was when I was reading the story was like, this is so fucking funny, and it's funny in a way that I appreciate in writing. And this is something that I wanted to say during our Simon Rich episode that I like couldn't get out of my mouth for some reason. Like I was gesturing towards that thought, and I think I kind of ended up saying it without saying it. But the thing I don't like about literary humor is it's so clearly written to be funny, and I don't really think and that's why it's like its own genre separate from literary fiction, and I don't think it necessarily is endearing when you read like I'm like, oh, okay, you want me to like giggle at this.
It's a whole bit,
and when it hits it's like, oh, okay, yeah, funny, you did a good job. But this is so good in the fact like it's hilarious.
It's subtle.
These characters are hilarious, and the way that they play with each other it's so funny. But it's never going out of its way to be like ha ha, nudge nudge, poke wink wink, the way the Simon Rich story did.
It doesn't draw attention to its author either. It draws attention to the characters, which I think is just really nice.
And I mean, like, I was really going into this story expecting it to be an absolute slog, like an old man writing an old story about old people, but it was funny, and it makes me really hopeful for, I don't know, not to be chummy, but like aging as a writer, growing
Exactly.
old, because this man has lots
There's
of
a lot
funny
of insight.
and he's also snarky too, you know,
Yes,
like he's
yes,
bitchy. And I
yes.
think this story is bitchier than the
So
Joyce
funny.
Carol Oates story, which I
Totally.
also thought worked because it was a little bit bitchy.
Yeah, kind of irreverent, but in
Yeah.
sort of like an earned way, not a like
Yeah.
fuck you way, and like a, you know,
And
this
so-
man has been doing this for decades, and it shows. I mean,
Exactly.
it's well
And so,
crafted.
you know, this is, you know, this, my whole thing, and I've like brought this up in the last like 4 episodes we've made of this show, where it's
Right.
like, you know, all these writers who just keep getting shit published, they just like keep getting shit published because, you know, they've been published before and nobody really checks them. But it is nice and refreshing to see people like Joyce Carol Oates and
Right.
now Thomas, what's his name? McGuane?
Thomas McGuane.
That, you know, earned their
Like
cunt
this-
and continually to put their pussies into it.
Right.
You know, their old age has not stopped them. They have not gotten lazy. They have not gotten despondent. Like, they're,
no,
they're doing the
exactly.
damn thing.
This line particularly, like really close to the beginning, like it looks like 3 paragraphs in, when like they realize that like Mildred is like dying. Mildred expired in her bedroom with a last breath that was like the air going out of a tire. And then it's like the two of
Yeah.
them talking, blah, blah, blah. Constance heard her yelp as she fell, was at her side, neither of them quite suspecting the enormity of the moment, though Mildred played with the idea that this was the end for her, and perhaps that would bring their brother out of Palm Springs in his helicopter, a suggestion that Constance poo-pooed on the ground that it was actually too far for a
Yeah.
helicopter ride and they'd have to come by plane. But then Mildred actually died.
Dies, I know.
And the minute Constance realized what had happened, she was surprised by the feeling of envy that came over her.
It's
That
funny.
was so
And
cunt.
the other thing, okay, I found
That
it 'cause I
was
was
so
looking.
great.
Like, there's this section where it's like the first, like, scene that we're seeing Bonnie filming and interviewing her
Yes.
dad, and so it kind of Thomas kind of at length describes like the ridiculous outfit that Cooper is wearing, like this sort of like cowboy drag,
Right.
and we're meant to feel like he's ridiculous for dressing like this, but then his daughter in a t-shirt and bib front overalls
Right.
thought he looked like a damn fool.
Exactly.
Like, he, you know, he got his licks in on the daughter too, on Bonnie
Exactly.
too. Like, you look like a fucking dumbass as well in your
Exactly.
stupid fucking overalls. Such like,
That's-
oh god, it's so good. He's giving it to everybody here, you know?
Right.
The old people and the young people all get lashings from Thomas
Which
McGuane.
is great, because I think what is really successful about this sort of like omniscient narrator is like there's like a little bit of editorializing that like really works for the story.
And I think it really goes to show that like I feel like all of these like conventions of what like a good short story should be, or like
Right.
what clean writing is, you know, really at the end of the day don't fucking matter at all.
Yeah, you can take fucking liberties
And
if you can deliver on it.
I know, like, and
I
so
think
like
this
I just
does.
feel like in a workshop, say if like one of us were to present something like this, it would
Point
be
of
like,
view
oh,
violation.
yeah, like why are you like throwing all of these characters into space when it's a short story?
The
for
editorializing
form? Yeah.
and not sure what
Like,
to make
who's
of
the-
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like it works, and at the
I think
end
it
of
works.
the day, that's what matters. It works. It's funny. It's
Right.
good. It's compelling. And so even though we get a really like large cast of characters here for a short story, we're introduced to, I would say,
Right.
at least 10 different people, if not more.
Yeah, and of those, I mean, the main 3, and then we have Bonnie and Wayne, the 2 kids. That's already 5 of like
Yes.
pretty like weighty in terms of the space they take up on the page characters.
And I don't feel like I lost out because of that. I feel like even
Yeah.
the characters that we only got little glimpses of, like his caretaker Gina,
oh
or
yeah,
the guy driving around, I feel like I was still, you
right.
know, I was left
Oh, and that
feeling
guy,
sad.
the neighbor Charlie. I forgot that was another one that was thrown in.
Yeah, in there. Yeah.
So it was hard to keep track a little bit of all the C names for me. Cooper, Charlie, and Constance. That one got a little challenging in the middle, but like overall it paid off. And
I felt like, yeah, really satisfied by like the tapestry that was woven here. I really liked it. I just liked, and I mean, I guess this also does
agree.
like boil down to personal taste, but I prefer fiction that is a cast of characters playing around rather than fiction of like, I don't know, like a beautiful plotted story, or
Right.
like something that says something
Right.
poignant about the state of the
Character-driven,
world. Yeah, like
because it's it's like more psychologically driven, like in terms of people's interactions with each other, as opposed to like some grand like plot driven
Yeah,
narrative.
and
And I think
and I just
completely
feel
agree with
like
that.
people, you can always get more juice out of people than you can events, you know?
Mhm.
And I think stories that are like so
Agree.
dependent on like plot or like,
Right.
you know, theming, it's just so, I don't know. I just feel like, you're able to get more mileage by just having a tableau of characters doing their thing together.
I totally agree. I completely agree. And, I think...
Like, you get a lot of mileage out of this. Like, I feel like so much was covered in just this.
We also covered a lot of, temporally speaking, because we have their sort of, past together. I do think these, that's also another reason why the family sort of story works, is because, they have such a shared history that you can explore and, fluff up to sort of, add stakes to the conflict now. Whereas, if you have a story of strangers just meeting for the first time, no one's going to really trigger each other to that extent. But, siblings, rich
and it's
ground.
It's great, it's built in quick shorthand for short story writing,
Which
it's
is great.
You don't have to do any establishing work.
I've never written a family story before. I should try.
I used to write a lot of them in undergrad because that was when I was using my fiction writing as group therapy, as unconsenting group therapy for workshops.
Yeah, we've been
so
there.
A lot of my earlier writing is about family dramas, but I've never completely invented something. And I mean, again, this is something I would love to try.
Totally.
I think it's a great way to really get to business in this genre.
I agree.
What else was I gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say the scene where they leave the ashes in the rental car.
That was the other thing.
so funny.
So fucking funny and so
in the
good.
Hertz rental car, they just drop it off, and their sisters, and they're gonna do it too, because when they load her up in the back, and she's also, before her death, a rather large woman, so it's made a point that there's a ton of ashes.
Yeah.
So he goes to pick them up from his sister, and he's like, "Oh, we'll throw her in the back."
Funny. Yeah,
And then they turn in the rental car, and then the cops have to make sure it's not a bomb.
Yeah, it's so fucking
hilarious.
Funny. And then speaking of the cremation, all this stuff about when she's pitching Constance about the cremation lady at the funeral home.
Oh yeah, all the things.
All about how she's a failed beauty queen, and how she's. It's always when we're doing this podcast,
I know.
It's
and
they don't want to hear us yapping.
I know, it's really fucking annoying.
I think they do it.
They do it every day.
Yeah. Okay, girl, we get it.
God damn.
But
it's not even any better, noise wise. I can still fucking hear it drilling into my brain.
All this stuff about how she it was one specific line.
Well, Constance is looking at this woman who's trying to upsell her on a coffin that's just gonna get burnt up in the cremator. And she realizes
she's negging her.
She's making note of how she used to be so much prettier based on a photo this woman has on her desk, and she's damn, she fell pretty far in a short amount of time. That was so cunty. It was so great.
She's being pitched about her sister's cremation. It's so
funny.
Let
me find
and
that.
It's so I think fiction works its best when it's bitchy, or when any writing works its best when it's
Charles
just
Dickens,
bitchy. Absolutely. Back to my thesis about Charles Dickens being a big fucking cunt. And the way that I think his age really lends itself to just this kind of old wizened bitchiness, where he does it so efficiently.
Yes, it's really efficient.
And he doesn't linger on it either, so it doesn't come off as mean-spirited or
it never hits you over the head too.
Yeah, it's just these little snaps, these little
snaps. Yeah,
he does it so good.
I really gotta find that. I know exactly the line.
As you're doing that, I'm gonna skim this interview once again and see. Yeah,
here we go. Okay, so the scene is that, Constance is in the funeral home sitting with this woman at the desk. Constance, paid no attention to the urn slideshow or to the Undertaker's suggestions that Mildred's size might run things up a bit. Looking at the beauty pageant photograph, my prescription is done, apparently. Looking at the beauty pageant photograph above the Undertaker's desk, Constance was fascinated by how much ground the woman had lost in only a few years. Constance declined embalming, so the refrigeration fee was unavoidable. The way that just steamrolls into, refrigerator, whatever. Incredibly positioned, so quick, snappy.
That was another thing I wanted to say about this story. It's
seconds.
he doesn't waste any fucking time.
Right.
Where I feel like, you know, in a lot of these other New Yorker stories, especially ones that have longer run times,
Right.
it's like, it feels like so much of it, like even
So
last
on
week,
the
the
nose.
Consolation, whereas like, even though it was like a good story that we ended up liking the more we talked about it, like, I felt like it wasted a lot of my time.
Right. It sort of
wasted a lot of
dragged.
narrative space
Right.
and things that just didn't, everything, he was quick, easy, everything here was set up,
Right.
moved through.
Right.
It was done so
Right.
well.
Right.
And I think there was also just a great mixture of, you know, exposition and dialogue. This is actually quite dialogue heavy for a New Yorker story.
Right, which is fantastic.
I know.
because-
And even so, it's not like the story was all dialogue either. Like, it was a great, I
Right,
would say
I actually-
50-50.
and also it's like there is some exposition, sure, but it's actually more filling us in on the background of the siblings' lives than like sort of summarizing any pertinent like
It's giving
information.
context, you
Context,
know, to then
not
make the
plot
dialogue
summary.
work. Exactly. It's great.
Which I think is great. So
I mean, like, I feel really compelled to pick up this guy's books.
I know I'm actually quite compelled by this.
I'm really interested in him. And, you know,
his
sexually
latest
too,
book.
I am interested in him.
He's very sexy.
I mean, you know, we talk about the authors every
Let's look him up.
podcast, so I mean, let's linger on Thomas McGuane for a second.
He's actually really sexy to me.
I mean, and he's like old now, 84.
Ooh,
so
yeah.
who knows what he looks like? I mean, if this headshot is current that they provided from the New Yorker, I would say, yeah, he's preserved well. And, you know, I think this is funny, you know, every time I say this, I always say, like, I'm not into older men. I don't go out of my way to, like, be attracted to older men. I don't consider myself someone who's attracted to older men, but every time I say that, Lucas will always be like, okay, but every time you point out being attracted to a man, he's always some, like, old fogey, and I'm like, okay, maybe there's something to that, and I guess, you know, I will continue to prove that theory correct, because, yeah, I would absolutely, I mean, I would have sex with him.
He's from Montana. I knew it. I knew there's one little like line about Big Sky, something. I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
exactly,
he's a Montana guy.
Now, do you think all
he's
men
sexy.
over a certain age have to take Viagra? Is that just like, is it like past 60? Is it just like inevitable that you can't get boners anymore?
I don't think necessarily, but one of the problems is that a lot of older, I don't know why I know this, it's healthcare background, a lot of older men take statins to lower their blood pressure.
And then so that will make it harder to get an erection.
Yeah. So
interesting.
Like there are other factors at play other than like, but your testosterone does start decreasing.
I will say he does look like someone who's had a nice high steady testosterone his entire life.
He's got the hair face, and he's like 80.
Like, oh my, his hair is so well preserved.
He's
you know what?
sexy.
I think that's part of it with him, like being a really sexy, like older, or like he's a senior citizen, like well into being like
girl, he's a senior citizen.
Death. But his hair, everything, he's hot.
Yeah, he's actually hot.
Wow. Oh my god, I gotta rate him fan mail or something.
We should rate him or something. Thomas McGuane.
Would it be
white?
I mean, is it for...
Wait, what? Look at this photo of them as...
No, I remember...
Him and his wife?
I'm
sorry, the 70s would have been so good to me.
We can add it to our shrine. And then in his Wikipedia article, I'm really curious who wrote it, because it's got a very, like, kind of in-depth, like, summary of his personal life as well as his career. And so, and in his Wikipedia...
What the fuck?
I need him.
I know. I want him so bad.
I need him. I fear I need him. Even at the age of 84, like, I need him.
No, he's so cute.
You know what I was going to say?
Okay.
I just want to get this out before I forget.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing that men have trouble getting boners past the age of 60. I feel like older men should be castrated. No, not even that they're too powerful. It's just, it's disgusting to me when older men express any sexual desire. I think it's absolutely devoid of dignity and honor. I think past the age of 60, you should not be talking about sex. You should not be wanting to have sex, and you should not be soliciting sex from anybody under the age of 40.
But
when you're like 60,
approach him to have sex with him?
Absolutely.
Yes. You know, it's
let
the
me
ball
do
into
the lead
someone
work
else's
in that
court for once.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pass the baton. Let us come to you.
And it's disgusting. You know, when... But
that's
I
true,
don't know.
because it's very lewd when an old man...
Yeah, it's like...
And you have to know.
You nasty, sick
freak.
It's like you know how... And I feel like I would give Thomas McGuane some grace because he is sexy.
Right.
But, like, when it's just any fucking man on, like, Grindr, like, sending you a cold call, like...
Yeah,
Yeah,
then it's
boy,
like,
you want to get
then
that
it
whole cloud?
feels,
Like, no, I
no.
don't ever fucking speak to me,
Right.
you nasty old fag.
I think it's
You deserve to
too,
be castrated.
well, it's just our divine retribution for, like, being the girlies. Like, we have to put up with so much bullshit on this side of our, lives, that, like, when an old man, not you, but, like,
Yes.
when old men become old, let someone else, you've done enough, damage, like, being, like, the one who gets to, like, hit on people and be creepy. Like, sit back and let us have our divine chance to do the same to you.
And it's
right?
so, I think, just devoid of cunt, because, like, I feel like if you're old, like, you should then take that opportunity to try to, like, raise up other old people. And I think that's very chic.
Right.
If you're,
go
like,
to an
in
art
your
gallery
70s,
opening, and like
you
get
find
some wine for a nice old woman.
Yeah, and you have sex with some, like, also, like, svelte, cunty,
Right.
like, 70-year-old
Yeah,
empty
some
nester who's
John
got,
Didion
like,
nest,
yeah, like, that's so cunty.
live in your element.
Absolutely, like,
Right.
absolutely support that and find it, like, beautiful.
Have a glass
and
of Chardonnay at a gallery opening.
Absolutely.
Do that.
What the fuck are you doing? Like,
Right.
going on
Get off
fucking
Tinder.
Yeah, as a 65-year-old man.
Yeah, sorry.
Like, come on, you have to know how fucking corny that looks.
Right.
How fucking ugly that looks. How fucking ugly you are in that context.
And we're not saying you can't get laid, because clearly there are people, like, you can
truly,
get laid. Like, just don't be rude about it.
A man at any age, as long as you're not fucking fat and ugly, like, or even when you're fat, like, you can really
totally can get it.
Fucked.
Totally can get it. You're not limited, so just, like, don't be too desperate about it.
I know, like you will be able to find your way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you're older. I think it gets easier for men to have sex with younger people,
right,
the older that they get. And it really is kind of like a hard line to tread, where it gets easier for older men to have sex with younger people the older they get, because the girls that are into that sort of thing really go hard for that sort of thing. But the older you get, the tackier it gets as well.
Exactly. You have to, like, proceed, you have to, like, keep in mind that
it's low risk, low reward. In fact, it's punishing more so than it is.
Because it just comes off as desperate. And I think the one thing that it sort of, like, also indicates is that you're not comfortable with the fact that you're aging. And it's like, that's not sexy. Like,
no, it's
I
not.
Want you to be an old guy who's like, yeah, like, blow me because I'm rich and old and, like, have experience, and, like, you're hot and young. Like, that's the reciprocal thing. It's not like, oh, I just, like, feel
and
like a young person
and let me provide something to you, beyond just being an old fuck, like have some, some cunt to you,
I totally agree.
Take me on a yacht, take me to a museum, take me to a nice, restaurant, like, girl.
All this to say, we have no evidence that Thomas McGuane is, like, on Tinder, but
if he was, I would totally be down.
He would be the one I'd probably break
literally
all of what I just
said. This whole discussion would be void for Thomas McGuane.
Because he's in the New Yorker. It's
exactly.
I guess you can be lewd if you're in the New Yorker.
Too,
right?
It's like, it's not even like he's just, like, mid and,
he's got
this
hair.
Yeah, exactly. He's hot.
I like
he's, like, high
Thataway. Also, I liked his voice too when he was reading the story.
Yes, he did have a sexy old man voice.
What a sexy voice.
I was gonna say one more thing, which was, theoretically, I feel like I can work myself into thinking that I would enjoy sex with, like, an older man, like, let's say, like, 60 and above.
Yeah.
But if I were to really think about, like, the act of sleeping with an old man and, like, looking at their old man body in its nakedness, and then having to, like, deal with that, that's repulsive.
That is a little, like
old
I want to
skin.
take my leave, you know, like,
and and whenever I say this, literally, when I would say this on Twitter and I would, like, make disparaging tweets about old gay men, I would always hear from the peanut gallery, like, well, just you wait until you're old. And I'm like, well, no, I understand that I'm going to get old and be, like, no longer sexually desirable, but I hope by the time I'm 60, I have a little bit of dignity and honor to know that, like, I'm not going to be on fucking Grindr trying to have sex with 20-year-olds, That's even more unflattering as a bottom, to be, like, a 60-year-old bottom soliciting 20-year-old cock on the apps. Humiliating.
Really humiliating.
Humiliating.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's how I picture Bret Easton Ellis living his life right now.
I think you're probably spot on about that.
Bret Easton Ellis has, like, a long time, like, younger partner who recently just got arrested for, like, going on a meth binge and, like, breaking into some woman's apartment.
Of fucking course. Like,
and
oh yeah.
And
no,
I know,
sorry.
the general assumption there would be that, like, the younger meth addict is the bottom in that relationship, but absolutely not. Bret Easton Ellis fully gives me, old bottom, like a rancid bottom on Sniffy's tea. And that gives me some solace,
Yeah.
knowing that he's probably in his personal life really pathetic.
Totally.
Because I actually was really kind of angered by his resurgence amongst the Twitter crowd and amongst the
I know.
TikTok
I was
crowd.
kind of
I'm
like, why are we doing this again? This is
I
old
like Jesus.
news.
Exactly, and that's why I'm so glad that Dennis Cooper hasn't made a big resurgence
Thank
in that
God.
kind of crowd, because it's like it just feels so old hat. Like, why are we still fucking acting like as if like Bret Easton Ellis is this undiscovered, like undercredited, underrated literary genius? Like, it's Bret. We know. We don't need to lick Bret Easton Ellis's balls every fucking turn of the day.
I
You know,
know,
like
it's
Jesus
so,
Christ.
it's literally so
Can
stupid.
we please let this pathetic gay man die in peace?
Yeah, it's,
you know, just embarrass himself on the apps.
Because it's just like, you know, give somebody else a goddamn chance.
I
It's
know,
like,
truly.
imagine also holding on with like such like a
I
vice
know.
grip to like, okay, your time was in the 80s, girl. It is over now. Like, can you
He's, like,
you
trying
and
to
I are
write a
gonna be on
movie.
like some tropical island, like
I know,
just
it's like
fucking
Thomas
chilling.
McGuane, quietly
we'll pop in
publishing
and
books.
out.
Yeah,
We'll
being
pop in
cunty
and
and not.
out. We're not gonna be doing this.
You
We're
know,
not gonna
Bret
be.
Easton Ellis really does. It's that same kind of like Gen X snobby gay male archetype that like they're hungry for
Right.
continual
like-
attention. It's the
and they
same way
still
like
find the
Jeff
internet-
Lewis or like Andy Cohen are. You know, it's these
Right.
older now these gay men who are in middle age firmly and can't really cope with the fact that they're in middle age, so they just
Yes.
become loud bitches.
Right, and they're sort of like obsessed with the internet in a way that is
It's
very
like
cringe
so
to me.
unbecoming.
Yeah, it's
like,
very Gen X though. It's like very much like, you know, your PR manager who's like early 40s, like posting on Facebook all the time. It's like,
and I think, and you know, this brings up this thought I've been having recently, where like really there is this huge parallel between Gen X and Gen Z, where they think they're so much fucking cooler than they really are.
I know.
And they love dunking on the like their age peers, like as, like their near generational peers. So like Gen X to millennials, Gen Z to millennials, you know, Gen X to boomers. They love dunking on other subsets of people, and they think they're like so above it all. And it's like
millennials are not dunking on anybody.
I know, like
I guess that's
we
now,
are, yeah. I mean,
not
like,
really dunking though.
And we can accept that, like, yes,
we're
large
awful
swaths of our like
Terrible.
cultural identity in our generation, is completely cringe.
Completely cringe.
And I
awful.
own all the cringe aspects of my own personality.
Absolutely.
I'm not cool per se, and I know this, and I really don't take myself seriously in a way that Gen Z and Gen X like really take themselves so seriously, and they get so mad whenever that is questioned or disputed, like so mad. One thing about millennials, we can take the L. And you know what? And
we can take the L.
And I feel like Gen Alpha can also take the L. I love those little Gen Alpha kids.
I know,
and their
skibbity
like, toilet.
Whatever.
I feel so much kinship with them.
Right, I agree. I absolutely agree.
Anyways, I mean, I don't know if I would give this story a 5 out of 5. I don't know.
Like, I mean, that's the problem with the 5 stars. Is it's not granular enough.
Yeah, and it's like 5 stars would literally be like perfect.
What
like
did we do? What did we read last week? I gave it a 4.5 stars, which I really liked. Oh, I liked. It was that. It was also a sort of like a family.
Yeah, I gave that one 3 stars, and I think I stick by that.
I would probably bump that one down to like 4.25 stars and give this like 4.5 stars.
I'm sticking with my like whole star ratings. I will give this 4 stars, but I will say definitively that this is the best story that we've read so far. I think
because then it's like. Yeah,
this
it's like
dethrones the Joyce Carol.
I'm gonna give this about a 90%. You know, because if I do it out of 10, then if you like just double that, then it's like more of a percentage. So it's like I would give this like a 9. I would give the other story like a 92%. I would give this like a 94%.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was actually really good. So.
You really have like high thoughts for consolation for last week's story. You really like that one.
I don't know, for some reason
you should pick up his book, his 15 Dogs book.
I should just see what I liked the character. I like the mom so much. I was like very compelled by
and I
her.
wonder if his books have other cunty females, or if any of his other books focus on a cunty female.
Right. Yeah.
Because I think that would be for that whatever that guy. Oh, Andre Alexis.
Yes.
Such a cunty name.
Yes. It is actually really slay.
If he has any book that focuses where the anchor of the plot, like the anchor character is a cunty woman, I bet it's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's exactly what that's what spoke to me about this. There was some taste of that in this one too, like with these, you know, old women.
I think I'm absolutely going to pick up one of his books.
I think you know what? I would love to borrow it after you're done with it. I liked it.
Do we have any what have you been reading lately? Do you have any thoughts about things you've been reading? Read any articles?
Mostly the slush pile, so
Yeah, you're reading
great.
submissions for a remaining unnamed
Yeah, exactly.
sort of literary journal, but like, you know, how kind of like all
Right.
literary journals are like flops at a certain like so it's really not anything, but
It's just, you know,
but I mean, all writing sucks. I mean, at below a
Yes.
certain threshold, all writing sucks. And if you
Absolutely.
yourself are a writer, you should take, you know, solace in that fact in just knowing if you've ever been
Right.
complimented in a workshop setting, chances are your work is probably
It's
better
probably
than
pretty good.
80% of the other shit that's circulating right now on
Right.
like the lowest of low levels.
It's there's a lot of stuff that, you know, and we've seen some bad stories in the New Yorker
Exactly,
too. You know, it's just like, sure, there's like a matter of taste, but like on
And
the
it's
whole,
like-
most shit is not actually crafted very well.
And like if there's
It's
shit
just
that's
not.
awful in the New Yorker, imagine downstream all the stuff and how bad it gets.
Oh, you
Like-
know, like, I mean, people, I mean, and then that runs the gambit for people self-publishing.
And
on the
you know what?
internet.
I always, whenever I say
Which
this,
is
I
incredible.
always say like this should motivate me to submit more writing
I
and to
know.
write more, but it never does.
Right.
Like I know,
I know,
it's truly,
right?
like,
I know, it's always
who
like,
knows when I'm gonna try and do the damn thing
Right.
myself.
We
I keep
will
saying-
do
I know
it.
we keep saying this summer we're gonna write and submit. This summer we're gonna write and
I do
submit.
think we should continue our little like project back and forth writing.
I do
'cause
too.
At least to get the juices flowing.
I'm gonna
and I think we can do
reinvestigate.
that maybe
Yeah, I kind of
next
put a
time we see each
sour,
other.
like it put a sour taste in my mouth because the last time I tried, I like wasn't really cooking. But I think it's just
I
you know
actually
sometimes.
disagree. Thought you were real like cooking with
Oh,
gas.
but did you read the like addition I
Oh,
added?
no, I didn't. No,
Yeah,
I
the one.
didn't.
So I did an additional addition,
slay.
and that one I thought was actually kind of like bad and didn't really go anywhere. But it's like you know
Yeah.
sometimes that happens.
Restart, pick it up.
I mean,
cool,
I
okay.
guess I
So-
mean I really actually don't have anything to really say about anything that
Are
I've
you
read in the
reading
past.
anything interesting?
I picked up Aesthetica by Ali Rowbottom like 2 years
Slay.
after any like hype about it happened in kind of like the alt-lit sphere. I feel like I've said this so much to you and sort of like in my head that I don't even feel like repeating it here on the podcast, but I will say if anybody reads this book, I just think it would have worked so much better as a Target hardcover like
Oh, right,
crime
this
book.
one.
You know, than it would
Right.
as like an alt-lit, like cool girl book. It was not a cool girl book. It was a Target hardcover that was, personally, in my opinion, did itself a disservice by being pushed in like the alt literary channels and having
that's
those types of
amazing.
people read it and say it was brilliant. Like Ali Rowbottom, if by any chance you're listening, you could have made so much more money
Yeah.
pitching this as a Target hardcover, finding a publisher and an agent that would have pitched this as a Target hard. I think you could have actually made a lot of money with this as a Target hardcover. That being said,
That's
I thought the middle part of it was really great, and the rest of it was, you know, take a hit of your vape and move on.
Which is, you know, unfortunate that it bookends on.
I know it
lows.
started and ended at take a
Right.
hit of your vape and move on, but the middle part of it was actually really thrilling and really
Oh,
kind of
slay! She should've just
provocative
cut
in
the
a
last
way.
chapter.
Oh, like
Just cut it, girl.
And
Get
it's
rid of it.
funny because like I as I was reading the last 40 pages of this book, I related so much because it was like I could tell she was just fucking tired
Oh,
of
she was
writing
just
this
done
book.
with it. Yeah, I get that.
She had planned so much and she had written
couldn't
like
bother.
200 pages and she was like, I can't write any more
I
of this.
literally
But I
cannot
really
look
want
at this.
everybody to know what my ideas were going to be, so I'm gonna summarize
don't
them
give us
here
the spark
really
notes.
quickly in the
Yeah.
40 pages. It was like I was like, girl, I've been there,
Okay.
done that.
Should've just, you know, called
should have
it.
just cut it. Yeah, called it. What else
That's
did I
very
want to
funny.
say? There was something else. Oh, I read the Kathleen Hale.
Oh, yes.
Simon Rich's cunty wife. That at the end of that episode we found her and we're sort of gagged by her. So Wisconsin, and she's
Slay.
such a cunt.
Remember when we thought she was British for like 4 seconds?
which is strange because she doesn't look like a Wisconsinite. She looks like
A
a
Brit.
British woman.
Yeah, she does.
And most people in Wisconsin are like have Polish ancestry,
Yeah.
either Polish or Irish ancestry in like Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But then investigating, I was very curious because says that she's from a suburb of Milwaukee, so she's from my current
slay.
stomping ground. I
Yeah.
was trying to suss out which specific suburb she was from. I'm sure it was like Brookfield or like Fox
Slay.
Valley, like the
Okay.
like richer ones. I think I might be mixing up Fox Valley with it really does not matter. But I will say she lived a very privileged life, and she went
Slay.
to Harvard, and
Oh,
that's
that's
how
right.
she met Simon Rich.
Oh,
I
right,
will
of
say.
course, of
Yeah,
course,
they
of course.
met.
Now I'm putting it
You
back
know,
together, full
and I
circle.
will
But she was
say-
stalking that woman, right? Like,
Yeah.
slay.
And I was sad because that essay was not actually very cunty, and I wanted her to be meaner and like more deranged in that essay. But there were other essays in that collection that were very deranged, that were very satisfying.
Great.
But I will also say this very much was not an essay collection. It was just like a compilation of pieces that I assume had run on like Vice or Gawker.
Oh,
It was
she
like
sort of
6 blog posts.
Right.
Mind you, I really liked it because I
Okay.
feel very like nostalgic for that era of writing.
Yeah.
I wrote a whole Goodreads review of it.
Oh,
And
slay,
in the
girl.
Goodreads review, I asked Kathleen Hale to make an appearance on the podcast.
Oh my God, slay.
And I feel like she maybe saw it and maybe is just ignoring us.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know,
she
it is what it
probably
is. And I mean, with
That'd
that,
be
I have
great.
nothing else I really want to have to say.
I think
this
that's
week.
a great note to end on.
Yeah, I feel like
Kathleen,
we-
come on, come join us.
I
and
feel
be
like we went for,
fun.
you know, our good amount of time. But yeah, Kathleen Hale, if you're listening, and I know you saw my Goodreads review because, you know,
Clearly you're looking at Goodreads.
And I hope you still are. I hope you haven't like learned anything or like become a
Right.
better, less neurotic person.
Yeah, because you're in good company.
But exactly, I feel like, but I did also say in that Goodreads review, like I feel like when people have kids, they like stop looking for that kind of company,
Right.
even if they are like
That's true.
deranged and like
It's so sad for them.
deep down like sort of evil.
Right.
It's so funny because I think out of her and Simon Rich, like she's the cool one in that relationship, and
Yeah,
I feel
she's like
kind of
hot.
like, and it's like, yeah, she's hot and
She's,
she's
like, taller
funny,
than
and I
him.
think her writing's more compelling than Simon Rich's writing.
Agree.
And I feel kind of bad that because Simon Rich is like the nepo baby who comes from like deep
Right.
Jew publishing money, that he's the one who got to have a career, and she
Right.
just gets to be like his wife. But I guess she lucked out because it's like
You
money
know,
forever,
She's got it. You
Yeah,
know, she
money
can continue
forever.
to look at Goodreads.
and she had his
still.
baby too, money forever.
Slay. Slay.
All right, well, see you
Okay.
guys.
Well, thanks.
Catch us next week. We love you so much.
Woo!
Thank you.
Slay.